All right, good morning, boys and girls. It is Wednesday, April 29th, our last few days of April. I'm going to start with chapters 5 and 6. I hope that you guys are all doing well. I miss you really tons. So we were left off with the drumming sound, right? The drumming sound that was getting louder and louder. Chapter 5. Within moments, the team saw heads bobbing up over the rise. 3, 6, then 9. 15 heads in all. Daisy Ramirez led the way, hitting 2 sticks together. Her son, Refugio, a 10th grader, banged a snare drum clipped to his belt. Jimbo Jakes, the apple cider maker, beat the stretched skin of a tom-tom with 2 soft mallets. Boom lay, boom lay, boom boom boom, boom lay, boom ba boom. Behind the drummers came the only lawyer in town, Grayson Gray Dog LaRue, who ran a part-time law practice in the back of his wife's hair salon, but mostly hung out on the bench in the plaza. He played a piccolo, blowing out a shrill, bird-like sound. With a gray goatee and a full head of wavy hair bobbing up and down, he looked like a jazz man who had sipped a few too many espressos. Behind the gray dog marched a ragtag bunch, click-clacking broken broomsticks and jangling tambourines. Frankie's mom carried a red cooler, and Maggie LaRue, Gray Dog's wife, carried a big stack of tortillas wrapped in paper. Others held shopping bags filled with whatever. Off of the side, pacing back and forth, was Hollis B., the town's poet savant, who lived on 2 wooden planks in the black oak tree just outside of town. Speaking into his cell phone loudly, rapidly, Hollis looked like he was a roving sideline reporter darting around giving reports of the band's play-by-play action to an invisible audience. The cell phone wasn't exactly real, you see. Hollis B. had a habit of walking through town waving his arms, holding lively conversations with imaginary people. In the past, he'd scared everyone from little kids at the preschool to the group of lady bird feeders who sat around the park. So one day, Sheriff Decker gave him an old broken cell phone. That way he could hold the phone up and walk around town like crazy and be no more annoying than a real estate agent. Tom loved listening to him and wished that he could hear his news report over the clash and clang of the band. As the group reached the ballpark fence near the dugout, Daisy Ramirez held both hands high. Halt! In 2 steps, or in some cases 3, the band and the music came to a stop. She turned to the campers and called out, "Wildcats! On behalf of the citizens of Dillontown, we salute you. Not only are you our baseball team, but you represent the history and spirit of this town, and now you are the town's only hope to retain its heritage." That last remark caused the musicians to break into mad, electric frenzy of toots, hoots, clacks, and booms. When they stopped, Daisy continued, "As your loyal fans, we are here to offer our support in order to help you prevail in the big game, the most crucial game of our lives." "Ah, geez," said Frankie, "this is so embarrassing." Mr. Gallagher stood speechless. Mr. Gallagher stepped forward. "Goodness!" Mrs. Gallagher stepped forward and said, "Goodness," she said, This is very nice. We thank you." She glanced at her husband. "We don't know quite what to say." "You don't have to say anything," said Maggie, who was a great supporter of our town. She owned the In-Your-Face beauty salon where the sign in the window read, "We'll chop your mop till you say stop." Today, her short brown hair was frosted blue and sprinkled with glitter. "You've got more to do than talk to us. We're just here to cheer you on. So please continue while we set up the barbecue grills, lay out the carne asada, some rice and beans." She tapped the red cooler. "And Humberto's fresh salsa. We want to make sure this team is encouraged as well as nourished and plays with a flourish."
You spelled carne asada wrong. It's carne asada, not carne asada.
Shrieks, whistles, and boom, boom, booms filled the air again. But this time, all the ball players joined in. "Carne asada," said Frankie. "Now you're talking my lingo." "Yo," said Will, "if we're gonna die, why not party hardy and die happy?" Maria just curled her tongue and whistled 5 times. While a few men helped Humberto unload the split oil drum grills from the back of his truck, practice resumed, and the soft-skinned balls began exploding against the backstop with increasing force, particularly as the team worked its way down to the lightest stack of bats. But after 45 minutes or so, the sweet, smoky smell of marinated steak strips grilling over hot coals became too distracting. "I gotta eat," said Will, leaning on his bat and staring toward the pile of meat. Frankie tore off his batting gloves. "After me, Mono," he started off. "Mr. G, we need a break." Mr. G was already eating. Soon the bleachers were filled with hungry ball players and their band of fans chomping down on burritos hot from the grill, refried beans hot from the pan. In a few minutes, though, everyone found out that Daisy Ramirez had more on her plate than grilled steak. She approached Tom's dad and sat down sideways on the bleacher board facing him. "Jerry," she said, "I'll say it straight out. We're not comfortable with you coaching this team." Mr. Gallagher chewed slowly and swallowed. He wiped his mouth. "Excuse me?" Tom set down his paper plate. Fear gripped his inside. He knew what she meant. Everyone did. Mrs. Ramirez let out a sharp breath. "Well, Jerry, no offense, but we all know what's happened in these big games over the last few years. Now, you're a great science teacher, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think you have the knowledge or capacity or capability to coach these ball players to the point where they have even half a chance to win the game." All the burrito chomping stopped. Paper plates plopped. Everyone looked at Mr. Gallagher. Tom was amazed that his father didn't back away from the dagger-eyed glare Mrs. Ramirez aimed his way. Instead, he leaned closer. "Well, Daisy, I understand why you might say this, but I intend to coach these kids to the best of my abilities. Yes, my baseball skills are limited, but I downloaded a lot of excellent drills from professional coaches across the country, and I think that I've put together a good program." After he spoke, the onlookers lowered their eyes. A few grumbled. Mr. Gallagher looked around. "Well, tell me," his voice rose. "Anyone. If you think I'm not able to run this team, let me know why." Now Maggie spoke up. "Oh, Jerry, we all like you and think you're a great guy. But you need to understand, last week we figured this town had been sold down the river and its days were numbered. Then crazy old Doc surprised us all with this last-minute curveball he threw our way. We just want our team to have a fighting chance." "Fighting chance, my asthma," said Gray Dog. "We want them to win." He raised his wild weed eyebrows. "And Jerry, you're our friend, but you've been for the development. Everyone knows that. And we just don't want to be double-crossed." Daisy Ramirez cut back in. "What Maggie and Gray Dog are trying to say is that these are the days of doom, like in the prophecy. And as the town historian, I need to make sure we pay heed to the warning." "Prophecy?" Mr. Gallagher flicked the back of his hand at her. "That bunch of garbage? Come on, you can't be serious." She kept talking. "We all know that as of now, our intentions are to help. But over the years, the prophecies of Black Jack Buck have been shown to be historically accurate. And since the death and doom prophecy mentions a double cross at the last minute, well, we can't take the chance." "Oh, that's absurd," said Mr. Gallagher. "Look, I'm in favor of saving this town. To put it mildly, our economy stinks. We're nearly bankrupt, and we need more than 1 or 2 new shops. We need something big. A golf course is big. Construction is big. Bringing in more tax revenue, that's big. But this is all beside the point. Right now, my focus is on winning this game. And why shouldn't it be? Chances are, if this deal falls through, there'll be another one right behind it." Suddenly, everyone was talking all at once. It turned out that whether or not they thought Tom's dad was the double-crosser mentioned in the death and doom prophecy, almost no one thought he would give the Wildcats a snowball's chance in El Centro, as Gray Dog put it. Not even Tom, he had to admit. "If we want to win," said Jimbo Jakes as he passed around cups of apple cider, "I say we get the El Cap High School coach up here. Or maybe Coach Quinn from State." That comment caused another storm of jawing and finger jabbing. "Hey, have we got time for that? I could make a few phone calls, but they won't work for free. Who's got money?" Finally, Mr. Gallagher stood. Look, if any of you have the kind of baseball knowledge you're talking about, and if you want to go out and round up someone who does, feel free. But until you do, I'm in charge here, and as far as my commitment to the team, I intend to make sure they're well coached and well prepared and that we play to win. He walked down the bleacher boards and onto the ground. As he strode, he shouted, Wildcats, meet me on the field in 2 minutes. No one had much to say after that except Hollis B. He dashed behind the bleachers, bent over, and spoke into the phone. The fix is in, says Daisy, and then says Gallagher's gang ain't got the stuff, ain't up to snuff. Gonna get bulldozed over like fresh cream puffs. Cruz's eyes opened wide. He elbowed Tom. Who is that guy? Tom shushed him with a finger to his lips as he and the others watched through the bleacher boards. Hollis B kept dancing. But Gallagher says he's got the chops. Says he'll pull out all the stops. His team will be ready to take the crown, and I say, boys, lay your money down on Dillontown. I gotta go. With a whip and a snap, he shut the phone and high-stepped it out of there, over the boundary berm. Whoa! Cruz looked around and grinned. That's what I call talking. That's talking like he was born talking. Who is he? That's Hollis B, said Ramon. He lives in a tree. Yeah, but he's out of it most of the time, added Rachel. Cruz was still smiling. Well, I like his style and his prediction. Really, you guys, I don't see why we can't beat any team we face. The others were too polite to respond, but they shared knowing looks. Then began moving around toward Mr. Gallagher waiting on the field below. Cruz, however, casually resumed munching on his burrito. Tom gathered some trash around him, crunched up his paper plate, and prepared to leave as well. But before he could rise, Cruz leaned over and whispered, You know where Dante Delgado lives, right? Tom nodded. Cruz pointed with his burrito off toward Rattlesnake Ridge. Think you could take me there? In the dark? Chapter 6. That night, after a full-blown carne asada fiesta, 10 score gruff and overstuffed campers crawled into 10 Army surplus sleeping bags covering 10 Army surplus beds. No campfire songs, nada. Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher placed their own sleeping bags under the fiberglass cover on the back deck not far from the girls' tents where they could keep an eye on everyone. Inside the boys' tent, the air was heavy with the odor of sweaty shoes, socks, and 40 years of dust and must. Will huffed and puffed, creaking against his cot. Why is it so crowded in here? I thought this was supposed to be a 10-man tent. That's without these cots, said Frankie. Besides, you take up enough room in here for 2 or 3 guys alone. Now, I know how a sardine feels, says Clifford. Now you know how a sardine smells, says Frankie. Cruz bust in through the tent flaps. Hey, you guys! What do you think about sleeping under the stars tonight? It's so stuffy in here. Ramon was the first to answer. I was thinking the same thing. Besides, I want to watch that moon rise through my telescope. Will jumped up. Ramon, you rule! Within minutes, all 7 boys had grabbed their bags and dragged them outside in the center of the lawn, just beyond the gnarly umbrella-branched pepper tree. They threw their pillows into a small circle, laid up their bags out from there like spokes on a wheel. It'd been almost a year since Tom had slept outside, but he remembered right away what he liked most about it, the sky. The mountain sky was filled with thousands of stars, from tiny dim ones to some as bright as airplane lights. And they went all the way down. That's what he liked most. In every inch of sky, from the middle of the diamond dome all the way down to the hills and trees, stars pinpricked the night. You know, said Cruz, I could lie here and look at the stars all night. Yeah, me too, said Tom. I could look at them all day, said Frankie, except that the problem with daytime is if you see one star, you've seen them all. Frankie, said Clifford, put a jalapeno in it. We're trying to sleep. The group fell silent as if the stars demanded their full attention. Though the night was warm, Tom climbed inside his bag and brought it up to his chin. Nearby, Ramon stepped up, setting up his tripod and telescope in the distance some 50 yards away. Tom could hear the muffled sounds of his father on the back porch snoring. Once they all shifted into position and Ramon turned off the lantern, Tom asked Cruz a question he had been saving for all day. What was it like, he said, riding all this way by yourself? It was hard for Tom to imagine being so free. Cruz tucked his hands behind his head. It was the greatest thing I've ever done. Really? No doubt. Like what? Asked Cody. What do you mean? Well, I don't know. I've been on a bunch of horseback trips, but you're always out there with other people. It's different when you're all alone. Your mom let you do it? Asked Frankie. She didn't care. My mom. She's not like a typical mom. She made a trip like this once when she was about my age, and she knows me. She knew I'd be okay. I called her this morning before I left my grandma's house to check in, and I called her tonight. That's all she wants. Wow, that is so cool, said Frankie. I'd like to have a mom like that. Who wouldn't, said Cody. She must really trust you. Cruz rolled over onto his stomach. Yeah, well, it's more than that. She knows about traveling. The traveling is it's like a jolt to your body. When you hit the trail, everything is brand new. Nothing's the same as home. And when you're out there all alone, it's even better. You go when you want, you stop when you want, your eyes see everything, like a roadrunner zipping across a field, or a blue-bellied lizard doing push-ups on a warm rock. You hear stuff you usually never notice. He paused a moment, like the crackle snap of a cottontail running over twigs. You smell the brush, the pine trees, your horse, the leather. It's like, I don't know, it's like you're hyper alive. Hyper alive? Tom loved that. And crackle snap? What a word. No wonder Cruz had laughed so much listening to Hollis B today. Cruz was a born talker too. And Tom knew exactly what Cruz was talking about. Every time he walked the hills, jumping rocks, cutting through the brush, Tom would feel a jolt to his body. Hyper alive, hyper alert. His eyes peeled for snakes or bones or anything wild, bursting out of a thick stand of sagebrush and stumbling upon the rainwater creek or spotting an ancient Kumeyaay camp in the bright morning sun would set him dream sketching for hours. He'd run his hand over a worn bedrock boulder, feeling the grinding hole worn smooth by centuries of other hands pushing against it with its river rocks, crushing ripe acorns into meal. Tom wanted in the most desperate way to reach under his pillow and grab his dream sketcher to write down some of those words and draw the scenes, but for Tom, writing was a lot like walking in the mountains, or like Cruz's horseback trip into Dillontown. It's something he felt best doing alone, with no one watching. Cruz sat up and swung his legs around. Now I got a question for you guys, he said. What's this prophecy thing everybody's talking about? No one spoke. The question hit Tom like a fastball to the gut. He knew the story best and felt everyone silently urging him to answer. But he couldn't. He didn't want Cruz to know. Finally, as the silence grew too intense, Frankie reacted. It's nothing. This town's full of dumb stories and legends. Leave it to Frankie, though, thought Tom, to downplay something that might make Cruz feel uncomfortable. True ones, said Cody. They're all true. No, they're not, Frankie countered. The only true ones are about certain beautiful girls and me. Yeah, right, said Ramon, looking from his eyepiece. Let me see. Yes, I think one was called The Legend of the Girl Who Kissed a Boy and Puked for Days. The bags rumbled with pounding fists and muted howls. When things resettled, Ramon, Professor, left his telescope and sat back down. Okay, look, here's all it is, he said. A long time ago, there was this prospector named Black Jack Buck who came here from Yuma, Arizona. He was part Quechan Indian, part Irish, and part ghost talker. I mean, that's what people say. But he did have this talent for seeing the future, and that is pretty much it. That's it, said Cruz. That's huge. What was he, like a psychic? I don't know, but every time he got just enough gold dust, he'd head into town and straight for the wine barrel room behind St. Anthony's. He'd trade his cask for black elderberry and applejack wine. Blackjack, they called it. And after he drank a bunch and shot up the town a little, he'd wander back to the church to sleep it off. But sometimes he woke up with a vision or a prophecy, and they always seemed to come true. Not always, said Frankie. People only remember the ones that did. He predicted the big drought from 1912 to 1916, said Will, and he predicted the huge flood that ended it. Lucky guess, He didn't even say when, he just said it would happen. Shoot, wait long enough and anything can happen. Will was not to be denied. What about the collapse of the number 9 mine? He saw that coming. Yeah, said Cody. He predicted John Dillon's death and his own. All 9 miners, Will explained to Cruz, who just happened to be on the town's baseball team, died in that one. That's why there's a stone monument out past center field. Another lucky guess, said Frankie. He said a team of 9 will meet their fate. I mean, go search these hills and you'll find 90 miners who will get buried up there. Anyone could have predicted that. Cody had more. Maybe, but crashes to crashes, dust to dust, 9 go to heaven in a gold mine bust. That's what he said. And then, boom, their mine explodes into this big dust cloud that covers the sun. Ramon kept going. Anyway, he also predicted the death of this town, his last prophecy, and that's one everyone is talking about. How's it go? It's another poem, said Cody. A poem? Cruz laughed at that. He was a poet and a psychic? Only after enough homemade wine, said Will. I forget how it goes, but there's a stranger who comes to town and he causes the death of a great man, and the whole town goes to ruin. That's what people are so worried about. There's one more part, said Ramon. Supposedly the guy who dies has a secret, and if that secret's discovered in time, the town will be saved. Well, okay, said Cruz. Now you're talking. Cody rolled over and spun towards Tom. Say the poem, Tom. You're the only one who knows the whole thing. Tom, still stargazing, shut his eyes. He knew this was coming. You guys, it's not that easy to remember, but he was vastly outnumbered. They all knew he knew the poem, and they all, even Frankie, demanded to hear it. Slowly, Tom rose and sat cross-legged facing the center of their circle. His hands felt moist, his mouth was dry. Okay, first he always starts a prophecy with the same couplet. With what? Said Will. Shh, said Cody. That is a little poem, you know. Tom drooped his eyes so he could wander to the back of his brain, and he started slow as a death march. Black Jack bucks in a wine barrel room, a barrel house king who sees all things. I see days of discord, doom and gloom. I see a swirling wind under the rays of the rising sun. I see a stranger from the east ride in. The stranger spurs a great man's death. I see Dillontown torn asunder. Lest the dead man's secret can be learned before the town falls prey to plunder. Oh, the stranger lies between lies and truth, but the truth lies here, my friends. A double cross begins the day, and by a double loss it ends. For a moment, a graveyard silence filled the air. Tom felt sure everyone else was now thinking what he had been thinking ever since Cruz first appeared. That Cruz was the stranger. And that somehow, maybe even by accident, he'd caused the death of someone great. Someone with a secret. Cruz lowered himself back down to his stomach, propping himself up with his elbows. Well, I'll say this. That guy's a born poet. Yeah, Frankie ventured. What else? What do you think it means? Tom noticed his stomach tighten at the question. Cruz hunched his shoulders. No sé. But I think I know one secret that will save this town from plunder. You do? Yep, and Tom and I have a plan to get it. Tell him, Tom. What do you mean? You know, Mr. 19 for 19? Tom's heart pounded. I still don't know. Yeah, you do. Tom and I, we're going to ask Mr. Dante Delgado if he'd come here and coach our team and share his secret of hitting with us. The other boys sent out a whooshing sound that filled the sky. We are? What? Then out of the dark came a voice. I think that's the best idea I've heard all day. And the boys' heads whipped sideways to see Maria appear out of the shadows of the pepper tree. And here I thought you guys were idiots. Then popped out Rachel, Tara, and all 3 girls approached, clutching their sleeping bags against them. We're sleeping out here too, Maria announced. That tent's okay, but Tom, your dad snores like a dog barking backwards. Besides, we heard you laughing, but way over there. It's not like we're even part of the team. Of course you are, said Frankie. You kidding? He sat up wiggled his bag to the side as if in a kayak, scooting up against Will to make room. Here, Rachel, squeeze in between me and Cody. Yeah, right. Maria tossed her bag to the ground beneath the tree. Nice try, Pancho, but no squeeze plays. We're sleeping over here. We just don't want to be left out. Yeah, that's cool. Cruz rose and waved. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Tara. The sisters grinned and spread their bags out past Maria's. Tom sat stunned as if in a dream. It was weird enough that both Frankie and Cruz could talk to girls so as easy as they talked to boys. An astounding feat by Tom's standards. But when Cruz told everyone that Tom would help him talk to Delgado, that idea numbed his whole body. Maria settled on top of her bag. Look, you guys just go back to scratching and belching and telling dumb jokes. Don't mind us. But remember, we're in this thing together. So you say it's okay? Asked Will. If a crazy man coaches our team? Desperate times, said Maria, call for desperate measures. And right now, we're all desperados. But after hearing those ladies attack Mr. G today, I know they're going to blame us too if we don't come through. So I'm up for taking my chances with the crazy man. I say go for it. She twisted around, banged her pillow, and then laid back down against it. She only said a few words, but for Tom, they were strong, beautiful words. We're all desperados. We're in this together. Go for it. Who cares about that dumb old prophecy? Who cares if we're facing some overcoached, oversmug baseball team? And who cares if a wild girl who might sit up and talk to you at any moment is sleeping just 20 feet away from you? A desperado like Tom could handle that, right? And he only had to turn sideways to see her lying there, dressed in shorts and a t-shirt, a bent knee stuck into the air, but now he realized he was seeing her La Desperada in a brand new light. And it wasn't just the stars. And that is the end of chapter 6. Sounds like Tom has a little bit of a crush. All right, so what do you think? Do you think the prophecy is going to come true? Blackjack bucks in a wine barrel room, a barrel house king who sees all things. I see days of discord, doom, and gloom. I see a swirling wind under the rays of the rising sun. I see a stranger from the east ride in. The stranger spurs a great man's death. I see Dillon town torn asunder. Lest the dead man's secret can be learned before the town falls prey to plunder. Oh, the stranger lies between lies and truth, but the truth lies here, my friends. A double cross begins the day, and by a double loss, it ends. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that that prophecy is going to come true? Do you think that Tom and Cruz are going to be able to find Delgado? Do you think he's going to help out? And what do you think about Tom's little crush? So, lots of questions for you guys. I hope that you have a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.